Yeah, did you miss me?
No. Justin did a fantastic job in that seat for 3 weeks, and now I've got to look at you again, talk about the Blues. I can't believe that the Highlanders weren't in the opener, because their try was the best try of the night.
Oh, Folau Fakatava.
Well, in Dunedin anyway, because it was the only try of the night in Dunedin, to be fair. But yes, your Blues are on fire. They're on fire.
Are they
They're tough.
They're tough, all right. I mean, they've gone about it this whole season, really. We've been waiting for a little bit of spark. Now they're starting to get that mix right. I mean, Hoskins did 2-2 out there. You almost forgive someone to think he was a back. But the Reds, this was the game of the round.
If I said to you they'd make this comeback without Finlay Christie, without Stephen Peters, without San Sullivan, to be where they are right now, JK, Mills, Kimberley, I'm just looking at this going, this Blues team's a different Blues team. You know, and one of their coaches has gone on to coach the All Blacks, and Vern Cotter has come in, and this is a team now which, on this sort of form, with what they've got to come back in, they're close to being a title favourite.
What do you mean, close?
Yeah.
They are the title favourites. They've got to be. They've got to be for a couple of reasons. Before I went away, they were clunky at times, and they hadn't found that mix between the toughness, grinding people down. Like, if it was the Crusaders right now, playing like that, everyone's saying, no, they're going to win the title, they're going to win the title, because they're doing stuff that we'd say about the Crusaders in the past. Like, should they have won the game on Saturday night?
Against the Reds?
Yeah.
Well, it's a fascinating game, because both teams got gassed, and then all of a sudden the bench came on, Mills, and they went up a gear. And when you've got someone like Caleb Clark to come on and bring that sort of injection, and that was actually technically almost a rest week for him.
Yeah, why was he on the bench?
Well, he needed to have a break, and they've made some really, obviously, strong discussions with New Zealand Rugby about where these guys are at. Here's a guy that needs to play. And this is classed. He didn't train much during the week, if at all. He's gone and made his impact off the bench, and so this is going to count as a rest week for him. But he's looking back to his All Black form for me, Mills.
Well, he almost looked refreshed, even though he's come off the bench, right? So he obviously didn't train, but the fact that when he came off, man, he made a difference. And I like this about the Blues because, you know, they've had 2 big wins in a row, right? A couple of weeks before that. Consistency has always been sort of one of their sort of downfalls over the past. You come to a big game and they lift again. The Reds, on the other hand, come off, you know, a loss against Moana Pacifica. They beat the Chiefs. This was always going to be a huge game in terms of what, and it did. It provided that. For the Blues case, I just think the consistency's, you know, right across from now. Since that loss, they have been to the Hurricanes. They have been a little bit clunky, but they've almost found now the balance between that expansive stuff. But what I really love is that hardness about their team, but not just the guys that are going on the field, like you've just spoken about, the guys that have come off the bench as well and lifted it to another level.
Well, you talk about toughness, you talk about grit, you talk about hardness, and this does bring me to another point I want to raise, which we talked about last week as well, which is in the forwards, and the hardness and the grit that we've seen in the forwards, exemplified, in my mind, by one of my feel-good stories so far this year, which is Patrick Tuipulotu. What have you seen from him in this week particularly?
Oh, well, I'm seeing All Black form. Obviously, he's had some disappointments, but he's always been a great athlete. He's always had the ability to attack the line, to carry the ball, and also physically, you know, impose himself. So I think he's just also taken the captain's challenge, Mills, and run with it. So he's a real mature leader now, and he's a mature lock.
Yeah. And when you're talking about, you know, I mentioned consistency, when it starts at the top with your captain, yeah, he's out with injury, came back after his jaw was broken. He's leading, and it's almost, it seems like it sort of relishes the fact that, hey, this is now what I have to do. I have to start hurting people in terms of my carries, how hard I carry, defensively when I'm around the edges, make sure guys lead with me. And he's just starting to show that, and that's probably one of the main reasons why his team is starting to follow. If
you look at him, though, and if I said to you that if Scott Barrett and Patrick Tuipulotu were wearing the 4 and 5 jersey for the All Blacks right now, I'd be more than comfortable with that. The big thing for me with Paddy is he just needs to stay out there. He's one of those players who gets a little bit unlucky from time to time, where he picks up a niggle or an injury when he starts to find and rediscover that form. And what we're seeing, particularly from him in the middle row at scrum time when he is there, scrum becomes a weapon again.
Are they two alike?
See, I don't think they are too alike.
Are they? Two reasons. I agree with you. I've got no problems with it. But are they two alike as players to play together? And do we need a bit more height against some of the northern hemisphere teams.
Plenty of height there, plenty of ability for Scott Barrett to change his game because he's been a 6 at the international level. He's rangy enough if he needs to be. I've got no issues with that whatsoever. I mean, I love what Paddy's bringing to that maturity you talked about, his leadership, but it's the consistency we're seeing.
I mean, loving seeing the Blues feel a little bit for the Reds, I've got to say, after the performance that they put in, especially from their young winger, who has inspired Mills's moments this week, I believe.
It has, Kim. It's inspired me to sort of look back the fact that his first run-on game for the Reds and scored a hat-trick. I mean, some of those tries that he scored, and one in particular, this is his first one, by Sami over the top. As every good winger, chased really hard and getting into a good supportive line, but he still has to finish. And finish he did from almost 50 metres out. The second try, you know, he obviously has to hold his width a little bit, make sure that he sort of is in line. He gets a nice wee ball, although the one downside is the ball is in the wrong hand, but he needed it because he was going to do a spectacular dive. Right? And this is why they call him, probably the reason why they call him the junkyard dog, woof, woof. Because he's jumping over. And then the step to finish on debut. What great tries.
What was that?
Magical. Tim Ryan, you've inspired me to look at that, and if anything to go by those guys that I've just spoken about, that kid's got a big future.
Massive future.
Well, he's certainly got a great nickname, so give him that. Well, you could say the same down south. Keep doing it. It's good if you're a Crusaders fan because they finally got win number 2 on the board. Big one over the Rebels. Goldie, you were there. Could you feel the relief from Nelson to Timaru?
Absolutely, but you got the sense right from the very, very start this was going to be a different game when the Rebel scrum was going backwards from minute 1. And at minute 30, they're yanking their front row, and the dominance they got up front was Crusader of old. But this was a very disappointing Rebel side. The Rebels have got a really difficult run in, but have they turned a corner? We'll find out when they play the Reds this week because you've got to back it up again.
Well, I think they're still a team that's playing with a lack of confidence because midway through the second half, I thought the Rebels could have really put some pressure on them and they just didn't, right? They looked lacking in confidence. I think that win will do a lot for their confidence, but I still think they've got quite a way to go. There's still some stuff in their game that I think if you get a team against you that's going to put you under pressure, I don't know if they've got that confidence yet.
But there's positive stuff as well. Like, I mean, how confident can you be when you're scrum and you're getting scrum dominance, set-piece dominance as well. You're getting guys like Scott Barrett going up and win stuff like this.
Yeah.
And we know that has been always a Crusaders' strength over the years, and they've kind of lost it. So that's opened up a little bit of confidence within the group as well, and then they've sort of chanced. I tend to agree with you. There's a patch here just before half-time. I think they're up 10-0 or something like that. And the Rebels still had a chance to possibly go in there, you know, at 10-3. But when you're getting so much dominance and what they sort of love, this opens things up. This is going to be a huge relief for them. I think, you know, I mean, they've been under pressure, you know, since they lost in the Aussie games, but that's massive.
The Scott Barrett factor, because obviously he is one key difference in the game on the weekend, and we have debated, and I'm sure many people have debated, how much of a difference one player can make. Did that show it?
100%. I mean, just his presence, I think, would have helped, right? But then when you go up and do what he's sort of done in the game and the influence that he had, particularly earlier on, we just had to look at. I mean, he's part of that scrum.
But their line-out wasn't misfiring either.
Yeah.
So the line-out's operating, the scrum's dominant. He's doing his work in the middle of the pack there. So to me, I said earlier on, right before the season started, when it gets to this time of the year where it's a little bit colder, it was dewy down there, the conditions suit what they've got in their frame, they're going to be incredibly hard to beat at home now, which puts them in that position now they can push for the playoffs. But what I do love, and was my favourite moment of the game, was actually the substitutions and their preparation to come on in a game where you think you need to warm up, get yourself ready. Here's a couple of older senior dogs, Owen Franks and Joe Moody. And they didn't even move in very fast there to get the jackets off. And this was their one warm-up drill before they went on to a Super Rugby game. And about 10 seconds after that, their numbers went up and they just trotted on. And what does Owen Franks go and do? He scores his 3rd try in Super Rugby.
It's 2-11.
2-10. His 3rd try in Super Rugby in 160, 70 games. Unbelievable. But I say that in jest, but you think about that level of experience. And if you want your set piece to continue doing what you're doing, and Cody Taylor, I saw before the game, is not too far away. More reinforcements.
Well, Scott Robinson, how many will he pick for the All Blacks? Because always guys in the Crusaders promoted themselves by being top of the table, by winning, right? But how many of those guys in the current Crusaders are putting their hand up for the All Blacks? It's a really good question.
And there's a lot of guys, like you say, who aren't there now, you know, and who haven't been playing a lot. And some of those players who are available for selection aren't even playing in New Zealand right now. So critical, like you say, that guys do put up their hand. They've got time. Have they got time, the Crusaders? They'd like to extend their season to the playoffs, right? So that gives you more of an opportunity to go out and perform and to play. So we've got a thing called a playoff predictor. So what it does is it crunches the numbers. We've got 10,000 statistics, and it's availability of players, it's availability of the teams coming up, it's what your schedule looks like. So before round 10, this last round, okay, this is where you sit right now in terms of your teams going into the weekend. The Hurricanes, Blues, the Brumbies, the Chiefs, the Rebels and Reds, they look really safe and tight, don't they, going through, because they've got to that magical number of 5 wins. You get to there, generally you're going to get there. But here are the other teams who are scrapping for those spots, those 7 and 8 spots, remembering the Crusaders are one of those. The Drua, the Highlanders, Moana Pacifica were in Fiji. The Crusaders and, of course, the Waratahs and the Force. The Highlanders played the Force. So, after the results of the weekend, that massive win from the Highlanders, the dominant performance, 7-6 it was, down in Dunedin, this is what it means. What does it change now? So the Crusaders now are up to 59% chance of going through the playoffs. Doesn't mean too much for these other sides on the side over here, because they've pretty much done what they need to do. This is where it's going to shift. Massive for Fiji and Drua. Up 16 to 53%. The Highlanders up 13% to 45%. Moana Pacifica, they take a hit. That's a massive game again in Tonga this weekend between them and the Highlanders in season. The Waratahs have won 2 games. Two games, both against the Crusaders. Can you believe that? And the Force, they're down to 14%. The Waratahs, 13%. There's your big mover though. The Crusaders, 59% chance, gentlemen, and I said that.